I'm still a bit nervous. First of all, I want to thank the band. This is my alma mater. I graduated from Einstein in 1967. I was a member of the first full graduating class, the ones who had started and finished at Einstein. And I was so happy to go there, and it's so great that you guys are here playing today, and it's so nice to hear the jazz. And I think about when I was at Einstein, the struggle between classical music and getting into the modern era. And so it's just really great to hear what you all are doing. So thank you very much. And I want to thank the violinists who performed, because one of my favorite things is to watch an artist's fingers on the neck of an instrument. And as they're playing the music, I'm looking at their fingers and I'm imagining the notes. And I'm just always amazed how people know where to put their fingers to get the notes. I play guitar. I can never play lead guitar. I never learned how to play lead, so I always played chords. But I appreciate that skill, and I appreciate whether it's on a guitar neck or a violin or, frankly, a saxophone, which is the one instrument I wish I had learned how to play. So I want to start my remarks. And first of all, thank you all and good morning. It's still morning, right? So I want to start with a simple, heartfelt thank you. And although those of you who know me probably know that I've got more to say. And I think we're a little ahead of time. So, time to burn. It's a great honor and a humbling experience to stand before you today as your new county executive. But the victory isn't mine alone. It's a victory for people power, and one that would have not have been possible without public financing. I cannot tell you. I can't tell you how important that was, and I can't tell you how many people came up to me and said that you're doing that was one of the things that made me want to vote for you, because this is important to people to know that public officials can actually do this and not rely on major contributions from special interest. I was really glad I did it. I'm glad that the county made this possible. Phil Andrews, I don't know if he's here, but he was one of the leaders in getting this done. And I'm frankly amazed at the depth and breadth of support I received from across the county, and the thousands of you who gave your time and treasure, hundreds of volunteers who knocked on doors, stood at metro stops, stuffed envelopes, made phone calls, marched in parades, sent emails to the friends, and the many thousands more who came out to vote. I cannot thank you enough. I'm deeply appreciative of your efforts, and I promise to work very hard to achieve our shared vision. I want to also thank my friend, the Honorable Ike Leggett, for his steadfast leadership in this county over the past 12 years. His sage counsel has been invaluable to me. We've always had good conversations, even when we didn't agree. I appreciated the respect that I got in the conversations, and I've always tried to respect you in your office. I feel that you made amazing contributions to this county, and I know as I went around the county, and I would meet particularly with immigrant groups, people who are new to this county, I was constantly reminded how important it was to have made the table bigger and to have brought more people to the table in Montgomery County so their voices could be heard, so we could weigh their interests as well as people would say, the usual suspects. And I've got to say that is a lasting contribution. And I've told people that I expect you to miss Ike because he's a really nice guy, but I don't want anybody to ever miss the work he did, particularly in our communities, because I'm going to continue that. I'm confident that the members of this council will continue that. You made a difference that's larger than you can measure in legislation, and I want to thank you for that. And I also want to thank your wife, Catherine, who has graced so many events and represented you and represented the county so well. And I've watched you grow from the first speeches you gave to the last speeches you've given, and it's just wonderful to see you up there. You always make us proud, and I really appreciate the work you've done. I want to congratulate the new council. Some of you I've worked with for a number of years. Some of you are coming on new. You worked hard to get elected, and I'm looking forward to working with you. I've told you we're going to bring an era of cooperation. I've always been uncomfortable with the separation between the parts of our government, and I want to do more to bring us together. We're one government. We govern for the same purpose. We want to achieve very similar ends, albeit we may occasionally disagree on some things, but we need to work together, and I want to make sure that we set a tone and an atmosphere that enhances that ability for all of us to come to agreement and make this county a better place. First and foremost for me, this election's been about the future of Montgomery County, how we will prosper, grow, treat each other, and move forward together. And to that end, my administration is going to focus on a number of areas. Some of them won't surprise you. First and foremost are our children, because they are our future. My goal is to significantly expand early childhood education. We know that this investment made up front yields dividends down the line, both for the students and for society as a whole. We first talked about the achievement gap probably 50 years ago. It's a long time. Yet the dramatic differences in educational attainment persist along racial and income lines. And we know that those determinants, those social determinants, are determinants of future outcomes for people. So when we recently looked at a study of health in Montgomery County, and you see that the African American community on average lives 7 years less than people who look like me. It's not just disease, but it's the social determinants of the conditions that people lived in and grew up in and have had to deal with that have lifelong effects. And it's our responsibility to do what we need to do to stop what has become, I guess, the normal. And I'm not an incrementalist, and I'll never be an incrementalist. Knowing that the biggest barriers to student success are poverty and income inequality, I spearheaded the push for 2 minimum wage increases in Montgomery County. And what I tried to encourage people to look at, this is not about whether it's worth $15 to flip a hamburger. This is about whether the hamburger flipper can put a roof over their heads and a roof over the heads of their children. And as a society, whether everybody's comfortable with this or not, we have to make sure that a person who goes out and works every day can earn a living and support themselves in dignity and take care of their families. That is the least we should do for people, and that is something that I'm so proud that the council and the executive were able to get the yes on $15. This will make an enormous difference for people. So I want to tell you 2 stories about me, because I want you to understand how I come about my view of social justice. I'm not a social justice politician. This is not the flavor of the month to me. This is something that's concerned me since I was a child. And I grew up in Washington, D.C. I started school in '54. And I watched the integration of Washington. I watched my neighborhood go from all white to all black in the space of about 5 years. And I remember as an 8 or 9-year-old kid, and I'm not sure whether I was 8 or 9, but it was while I was still living there, I went across the street to a graduation party for one of my classmates' sister, who just graduated from Coolidge High School. And I walked up to her, and you gotta know something about my family. My mother had a 7th grade education, and my father had a high school education. I walked up to her and I asked her, "What college are you going to?" To this day, I do not know why I asked that question or why I knew you were supposed to go to college. My parents must have said something. And she said, I'm not going to college. She said, my uncle went to college. All he is a janitor. That's all there is. And it's not worth it. And, you know, I was 8 or 9, and I wasn't, I didn't have a full understanding of that, but I knew that there was something wrong. And that stuck with me through my whole life. So as I got older, what she said began to grow a context around it. And I began to understand what it meant. And, you know, I thought about my own life and how I raised my kids, and I realized, you know, at the age when I graduated high school, I thought about possibility. And I thought about what I could do, and I thought about what world my kids would be able to move into. And I realized, and I kept thinking about that girl, and I thought about what would have happened to her. You know, what would she tell her children? Would she tell her children there was no future and no possibility? And what if she did that? How would her children grow up? And how would their children grow up? And I realized how we spin out in different worlds, and a lot of that starts when we're really young. I didn't know all that when I was 8 or 9, but I learned it as I got older. The second thing that happened was a knock on the door, and one night we're sitting in the living room, and somebody knocks at the door. My mother gets up, answers the door. I go over with her, and I'm standing behind her, and it's 2 white real estate agents. And they proceed to tell her how important it is to sell their house and get out of the neighborhood now while the getting was good, as you might say. And talked about what would happen when the neighborhood fully integrated, what would happen to their property values, what would happen to the school. And again, it was a scary conversation to listen to. I didn't realize the full importance of it until I got older. And as I realized that, I thought about, you know, what a difference, you know, if we had integrated our schools and people had learned to live with each other and stand side by side with each other as adults and as children, what a different world this would be, instead of to have a decision to integrate schools lead to just another form of segregation in society. And again, I understood the depth of that as I got older. The last story I want to tell you is more recent. I saw the movie about James Baldwin, I'm Not Your Negro. And there's a scene in that movie where Martin Luther King is talking, and he's talking about the legislation they're trying to get through Congress. I think it was 1965. And he said that people think we're going too fast, and they want us to wait another 40 years. I added 40 to 1965. I got 2005. It's 2018. We're not there. And, you know, thinking about that, I realized if we wait for people to get comfortable with the notion of justice, we will wait a very, very long time. So I believe we have a moral obligation to create a more just society now, to do everything we can do now to make this a better place for everyone. This is our responsibility. This is not the next generation's responsibility. This is on us, and I'm going to do everything I can with my administration to move that needle, and that's why I am not an incrementalist. People have waited long enough. We are, what, 153 years past the end of the Civil War, and we can't come to terms with this? Shame on us. And we need to get this done, and we need to get it done now, and we need to get it done here. And if you can't do it here, I don't know where you can do it. So think about that. So that's a task that I'm going to take seriously, and it's a task that's going to color the kind of work that my administration does. We're going to continue to advocate for tenants' rights and truly affordable housing throughout the community. This county is going to implement racial and gender equity lenses. This was put forward by the last council, so we can understand the impacts of our decisions on communities. We are well-meaning people, but sometimes if you don't look close enough, you don't understand the impacts of everything you do. And using a lens and making ourselves conscious of the decisions we make will make us more aware of the impacts and make sure we don't do dumb stuff. Like, for example, zone entire minority communities out of existence because we think shiny new buildings are a nice replacement for where they live right now. At the end of the day, we're going to make sure we carry out our programs in a transparent and fair manner. Now, I know a lot's been assumed about my attitude toward business in Montgomery County. I've been on a tricycle, I believe. Some of it's humorous, particularly, it's not so humorous when you look at it the first time, but in retrospect, you can see the humor in it. But let me tell you what I believe and what I actually want to do, because that's what really matters. First of all, there's no way we're going to be able to succeed in any of the things that I or we are going to try to achieve if we don't have a healthy business climate. That's simply reality. I know full well that without a healthy business climate, we will not have the revenues we need to address the social problems we face. So our goal is to make sure we have a healthy business climate without sacrificing quality of life, without failing to address the need for schools and transportation. I've always believed we can do both, and we're going to find a way to do both. I've also heard on the campaign, and I'm really serious, but I thought this is just something people said. I could not go into a meeting where I ran into small business people where they didn't reiterate over and over again that we have the worst business climate in the world, maybe the planet, possibly the universe, but pretty bad. And so one of the first things we're going to do is we're going to benchmark Montgomery County's codes and regulations against surrounding jurisdictions. If we're doing stuff that other people aren't doing, we're not going to do it anymore. I don't believe for a second that Montgomery County is a safer place than Frederick or Fairfax or Howard or the district. So we're going to put a lens of realism on what we require people to do to make sure we are not pricing people out of doing business in Montgomery County. We're not incentivizing people to go somewhere else. We can do this. We can do it right. And I hope by the end of the year, people may never said you're the best regulatory environment anywhere. I don't think anybody's ever said that. But I'd be happy if somebody just said, you're not the worst place. You're just like everybody else. I would be happy to be just like everybody else. I don't want to be the worst place to do business. And we're going to make sure that by the end of my first year, that we're well on the way to making sure that no one says this to us anymore. We're going to have sensible business regulations. I'm not going to sacrifice safety. I'm not going to sacrifice the environment, but I'm also not going to do dumb stuff. And I've seen enough, people have come to me with enough stories to know we're doing stuff that's dumb. I'll give you, just as an example, if you were building a building and you were getting an inspection, inspector might come in and they inspect, they find something that's wrong, they fail you. They say, I'll come back when you fix it. They come back when you fixed it, they inspect, they find something wrong, they fail you, say, I'll come back. We're going to make sure our inspectors go through a building, they do a punch list the first time, they hand the owner the punch list, these are all the things you have to fix. That way they can fix them all at once, and when the inspector comes back, they can inspect them all at once. Our inspectors aren't going back and forth. The business owner isn't saying, every time you come here, you'll find something new. This is a simple thing to fix. This is something we're going to talk about right away to make sure we deal with this as soon as possible. We all know that businesses choose to locate where quality of life is good. I've always believed it's possible to have a growing, healthy economy and provide adequate schools, transportation, recreation facilities, and green spaces. I truly support smart growth, transit-oriented development, and I've worked with communities long enough to know that they'll also support change when they're involved and when the change is done right. The biggest source of resistance is when people don't feel they're part of the process. When you're not part of the process, then you don't have ownership in the outcome. And I'm going to make sure that as we modernize and as we move forward, that everybody in this community is part of the process so they understand that they're part of the outcomes. And I think that's an important thing for us to do. Development is not just about the buildings we build, but it's also about the communities we build and what we preserve. And so we're going to make this a more holistic approach and make sure this county can move forward, but also that people feel like this isn't just being planned for somebody who might live here 30 years from now, but it's actually being planned for people who live here now. I believe you can do both. Other jurisdictions do both. We're going to find a way to do both. And as the Washington Post reported, Washington area business leaders find the biggest impediment to economic development in this region is actually the lack of a bus network. For as much as we talk about, the metro, which is absolutely critical, and it serves a critical function, but it doesn't serve every function. And so people trying to move around inside of counties, pretty much any county around here, finds the transportation absolutely inadequate. And we're going to build the BRT system that we started on 10 years ago. We're going to connect people from where they live to where they work, and that is going to be an engine of economic development, and we're going to start working on it. And I appreciate, I'll go back to Ike again, thank you for recognizing the value of this some years ago and getting it into the master plan of highways. Now it's our job to take a plan and make it reality. Almost lastly, I want to say we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the environment. We have to recognize the urgency of global warming and climate change, and we have to take concrete steps to change that. Every extreme weather event, every melting ice cap, and every raging fire that destroys homes and lives makes clear the consequences of inaction. So we're going to explore creative, common sense ways to address greenhouse gas emissions at the local level through clean energy, energy efficiency, enhanced building design, reduction of waste, and better transit options to get cars off the road. Note to the governor, no beltway widening. And we will reduce our carbon footprint. We owe our children and our grandchildren nothing less than this. And hopefully, this county will be an example to other jurisdictions, which we've been before. It's not an unfamiliar role for us to play, and we know this isn't going to come from the federal government, so it's on us again. But we can do this. We can make these strides. We can make this a greener place, and we can be an example for other people to follow. And I'm pretty sure as things get work, people are going to want examples and models of what does work. We can be the place that they look to. I know these are ambitious goals, and many have price tags attached to them. And I've said throughout the campaign we have limited financial resources for the foreseeable future. But that doesn't mean we can't get things done. So I will be working hand in hand with county employees to restructure the county government, to operate more effectively within our budget, and provide the best value for every dollar that we invest. Our employees know our workplaces better than everyone. And our employees can read budget projections the same as I can, the same as the council can, the same as everybody else can. They know that in the struggles we have, if we don't spend our money better, that they face job losses and losses in benefits as the demands on our resources continue to outstrap the existence of our resources. And that only by using that money better can we both preserve good jobs in Montgomery County and address the things that we're doing today, but also get into addressing the things that we know that we need to do that we don't have the resources to do right now. And I'll say bluntly, as long as taxes are the only answer we know, we never have to examine how we work. But we know that taxes are off the table. I saw what the campaign was about, and we're not going to be raising taxes this year. So if you're not looking at taxes and you've got $5.5 billion budget, it behooves you to look at how you work, to see if you can work better. Can you work smarter? Can you work more efficiently? That's what we're going to do. I know the council understands our limitations. I understand our limitations. Our workforce understands our limitations. And frankly, the residents know our limitations. So we've got to be better stewards of the money. We've got to be more efficient. And we can still find a way to move forward, and that's what I'm committed to do. So, as many of you know, I came to this office after 12 years on the county council. Before that, I taught 17 years at Rolling Terrace Elementary School in Montgomery County. And in my heart, I'm still a teacher. And I feel, you know, you owe people an explanation. This is why you don't get sound bites from me. I mean, if I just can't say, rattle off a sound bite and say, believe me, trust me, do it. I feel it's my obligation, if I want to do something, for you to be able to understand what I want to do and why I want to do it, and give you an explanation for why it's a sensible thing to do. And that's what drives me. But I'd like to quote Krista McAuliffe, who's probably our country's best-known teachers, one of our best-known teachers, who famously said, "I teach, I touch the future." That's what my administration will be about, how we will touch the future. That's our job. We're not governing for today, we're governing for tomorrow and the days that'll come after that. So in closing, I want to thank my family, whose love, support, and understanding made it possible for me to campaign nonstop for the past 18 months. But now it's time to get to work. I look forward to talking and working with you. Together we'll deliver some real accomplishments for the people of Montgomery County. Thank you.